Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to the Warehouse interview. Tonight, Martin Popoff and myself welcome a true musical legend to the Warehouse, the legendary Graham Parker. We are looking at the album Howlin Wind at age 50, but we go and talk much more. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Graham Parker, let's do it.
Serving up riffs hotter than Hellfire Chili with a beer chaser. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and today is a special day, ladies and gentlemen, because looky here who's here. Well, not only is Martin Popoff here, but we have Graham Parker here. And this is an extraordinary day and time because we're at well, think about this. The debut record, Howlin Wind, is 50 years old. There is also a book that was released last fall, Graham Parker's Howlin Wind, book by Jay Nachman. He's got so much going on, and he's an icon. I'm not trying to be giddy like a schoolgirl, kids. Well, anyway, I am honored to have you on the show. I appreciate you here. Now, I like to keep things loose here in the Warehouse, and I always like to start out with this question because I'm always fascinated. And just to share with everybody who's going to watch, when you were a kid, like let's say you were 13, when you came to that moment, you had that come to Jesus moment where you heard a band or an artist that you heard and it totally changed your life, and you decided, I want to go down that musical path. This is what I want to do with my life. I mean, was there a band or artist or a time? A lot of musicians say, the Beatles on Ned Sullivan was the moment that changed my life. But Graham, was there a moment? What made you decide to go down that path of rock and roll?
It's really incredibly boring. It's the Beatles. What else? I mean, I was 12 years old, man, and what we had before that was the older, a lot of American stuff, which I liked a lot as well, and has always been part of me, from Doris Day to Bing Crosby, and the stuff that was on the radio, and Danny Kaye, and all those brilliant acts. All that music, Duke Ellington and whatever. And my cousin was a couple of years older, and there was, he had the quiff. Well, we all had one of those that we always, brill cream our hair back in the sort of the rockabilly quiff, and it was more the Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly, which, was all right. I didn't really get it. It was the Beatles. I'm sorry. It's just so dull. Beatles and the Stones. I know some pretentious musicians will say, I heard Stockhausen. No, it wasn't like that. We heard the Beatles. Come on, stop lying. And it was, I think, by the time From Me to You, that single, Love Me Do, came out, and I was like, stupid name, the Beatles, and then the next one, From Me to You, was like, oh, wait a minute, and then the Stones were so terrifyingly like anti everything. They was, it was quite incredible to have a group like them looking like they did on television, having hit records. And now, there was a ton of other groups at the same time, and suddenly the light shining on them, from Billy J. Kramer to the Brian Poole and the Tremolos, Dave Clark Five Searchers. That's what it was. I was 12, 13, and that's when I was lucky enough to be around that time, and it's as boring as that. But I can't.
Can I ask something, Grant?
I can't lie.
Martin, feel free to jump in whenever.
Well, you mentioned the rockers. Were you ever much of a rocker? Did you have rocker buddies, or were you ever a mod? And when did like Bob Dylan and more singer-songwritery stuff come in for you?
Well, it's a lot of these things hit the same time in various different ways. But yes, by the time I was 14, in fact, somebody had given me an Otis Redding record, and that was it. The end of the Beatles for me. It was gone. I didn't, white people making music, stupid. No, got to be from America. They got to be black. It was basically the trends that you go through when you're young. And it was not the mods. That was a little before, but the Moddy Boys, which was like a skinhead cut and stuff like that. I was part of that, definitely. I'd go to clubs and we danced almost exclusively to Motown, soul, and ska. In England, we had ska music, the Prince Buster and the Scatolites and things. So that was post Beatles and stuff. And yeah, that because all of those early groups, they all pulled so much inspiration from American music. I mean, it was obvious. Look at the covers they did. Twist and Shout, Roll Over Beethoven, the Stones doing their first album almost entirely of old blues and R&B songs. So that immediately ties the circle around. And then I went through all the fashion stages. That long-haired acid proselytizer, freak. I went through all of these different stages. The as I say, the more rock and roll from the Elvis Presley era was more a little before me, but before the Beatles we were all developing the haircuts, and there was Cookie from 77 Sunset Strip. I mean, you got to look like Cookie, coolest guy in the world, greatest show there ever was. And there's all that, so all that influence. But the Beatles and the Stones, suddenly it's a whole ball game because they weren't far from us. The Rolling Stones. I was born in London, grew up in Surrey in the country come suburbs, and the Stones were like 30 miles up the road, Twickenham, and they lived in South London and things. So it was like, we can do this, maybe, 12-year-olds, 30, maybe we can do this. So you pick up a guitar, you form a group, and like me, you're lazy and you don't learn to play until 20 years later, well, actually, more like 10 years later, I suppose. Yeah. But really, it took me a long while. I was just half-hearted about it, in and out. But I love the fashions and I love the music of all those different time periods, post Beatles and Stones and beat groups, the Mersey beat groups and all that. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Grant?
Fantastic. Well, I was just going to say, time, in my old age now, time just flies. And the fact that we are at the 50th anniversary of Howlin Wind, I mean, it's this month. I mean, how does that make you feel, Graham? I mean,
Tired,
yes.
old,
Tired and old.
regretful.
Well, what?
Only the first two. No, it's when talking back into the beat groups, the 60s there, when they emerged, the thought was, as Ringo said, when asked, what do you want to do when this is all over? He said, I want to open a hair salon. You didn't imagine, you couldn't imagine it, even though your inspiration was black guys who were 70 years old. For some reason, you couldn't manage it because it was all about single. And 3 months later, if you don't have another hit, you're in trouble, So that was before my time making records, obviously, because I was in the 70s. By then, it was album rock. It was, I considered myself, and still do, as an album artist. It's a whole story tied together with these songs, whether they're disparate songs or like a song story where you've got one song going through the album in a way. There's that kind of idea to it, but you just didn't imagine, that you didn't imagine you were going to go beyond the difficult third album, and then you would drift away. But at least you have enough money to maybe rent a flat somewhere, and talk about your great success for 5 minutes when you were down the pub. It did not occur to me that.
So you really didn't have plans. I mean, did you ever? It just sounds like you're just kind of going by the seat of your pants for the most part.
Yeah, no plans, no ideas at all. No, nothing. No ideas, just writing songs until they got good. Lots of them.
Can I ask, back to Howlin Wind, what was your relationship to the idea of pub rock and punk rock? And you're on a major label right away. What was their thought about where they wanted to slot you in and market you as?
Well, there was Phonogram Records. I signed the deal in 1975. There was no punk rock. There was no new wave. They were just words that started to creep into the music papers a bit, because there was this scene in America in 1975, even CBGBs, I think, that was going on. But 99.9% of the public weren't aware of it particularly. 99.9% of the people they'd never heard of pub rock or heard any of the bands. These things did not exist as their imaginary genres now. that were, but they were, punk was real. That was a real genre. A real phenomenon that swept over England. But it wasn't until 77, the Sex Pistols record came out in October 77. It was, it was that kind of period. So I had two albums in 76, and I felt like I was in a field of one. These things weren't, they were just things that were, there was the Ramones in 76, 100%, who I thought were like a lovely, interesting cartoon pop band, but somehow they had the word punk applied to them. So I suppose that was, and in England, they couldn't get arrested in America. They came to England, they'd sell out the Roundhouse, 3,000 people, and every person there became started a punk band. So this was going on, but it was separate from me. It was just in their throes of starting. I was fully formed and made a record, so none of these things affected me. Punk rock was unknown to pub rock was unknown to me. I didn't know any of these people that I was suddenly associated with or in my backing band. This is all mythology, I try to tell people that nobody wants to know. No one wants to know this. No, you were a pub rocker, weren't you, Graham? Pubba, rocker. Let's go down the rocker. Make some bloody rocker, pubba. This is what they think. I'm not. No, stop it. But it doesn't matter. That's what people want. So,
what was the label's thought, though? What did the label sort of?
There was only one person I dealt with at the label, the guy who signed me. I can't remember meeting anyone else. Frankly, it was just this guy who heard the demo that my manager, the guy who became my manager, got played a demo between you and me. And this guy phoned up and said, I want to sign him to a record deal with Phonogram Records. And it was instant, I didn't really have to try too hard. I just had to write really good songs, which is, that's work. But the rest of it, there was no pub rock. They'd all disappeared, or their bands had broken up because they couldn't get anywhere. Mm-hmm. But there was a pool of musicians who were fantastic that I had no idea existed. That was the amazing thing about it. All these good musicians, and they've been playing stuff sort of not far from what I was doing for years, but nobody knew about it apart from, amount of people that can fill out the back of a pub in a little room. We're talking 100. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about here. It wasn't a phenomenon. It was nothing. It was unknown. All of these, but punk became the real phenomenon, and then people started tying that in with pub rock for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe there's some reason there. Maybe there's some relation. That's the kind of story, the mythology of it. I don't know. I was in a field of one and still am. I don't, this stuff. No.
So when you got that record deal, you started working on Howlin Wind. How much did the record company ever interfere with anything with the creative process? Did you have free reign? Good debut album, usually the record companies have a lot of say on things. I'm just curious.
Good question. Yes, that is a pertinent question. No, me and Dave, my manager, Dave Robinson, who I met suddenly, and suddenly we've got a game for playing here. We got a record deal. We were adamant. Just give us the money, we make the record. Fantastic. And that meant I make the record. And I've done that ever since. Whenever there's been some record company trying to be involved, they want to hear some demos. I did that once, and I ended up not releasing a record with them. It was Atlantic, and it was one of a hero of mine who basically introduced soul and R&B to the British and to the world in a way, Ahmet Erdogan. And he's talking about Whitesnake and Genesis. Goodness. Because it was the 80s. So I'm sending demos because my second manager thought that was a good idea. It's a terrible idea. They don't understand it until it's done. They got no idea. Even a guy like Ahmet Erdogan was going on about this and that and the other. It's like, come on, man. Okay. So no, it's me. I do them, and that's the way I do it to this day. You can't have record. I'm not up there with Van or Dylan. Okay, that's not even close. But do you think those guys, sit around with these record company chumps and ask, talked about how they're going to make a new album?
Yeah.
No, of course they don't. No. So why should I? I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm self-contained. It's ridiculous. People who can't write songs, that's another thing. You get Clive Davis or somebody with an artist who doesn't write a great deal of songs and puts them together with people. Fair enough, but that's not going to fly with me or any of the people I probably admired and liked.
I just kind of look at it there. You can look back over the history of rock and roll and you see a lot of bands. You started out in the 70s, and a lot of those bands are acts that started out in the 70s, made that transition to the 80s, and I don't think a lot of those bands transitioned well. And I can see where they would want to sit you down and try to modernize you or try to make you fit in with, gated drums and all that, and I couldn't see how you would fit in there, but I could see where they would try to do that to make you more modern.
It wasn't, I didn't need them. I fell into the same trap anyway. Like Steady Nerves, listen to the drums, they were compressed and whacked out of your mind there, and even Another Grey Area and the Real McCaw, those 80s records had a bit of the 80s ethos going on, although it was only Steady Nerves that had the massive drums that were compressed and reverbed out the window. Because it's something I wanted to sound like that. We all caught this disease, really, of losing rock and roll for something else. And even Bob Dylan, look at this. I remember him saying in an interview, I've been thinking about the sound of my records too much lately. I've been thinking, that's not what it's about, man. He went through the 80s thing as well. There were people mixing. He had some big mixer doing one of his things and all this stuff, So I didn't need a record company to encourage me or try to force me or wangle me. I just was like, yeah, give me the 80s sound, man. It was very weird, but, you just go through these things. By the time I got to the Mona Lisa's Sister in 1988, it was like, I've got to get out of the 80s now before anyone else. And even the Mona Lisa's Sister has too much reverb on it. It's still got an 80s feel, but it's an album that I insisted, it doesn't matter about the drums, okay? I always get good drummers. It doesn't matter about the drum sound. Mic the drums up. It's about the singer and the song. And that really, Erdogan, that didn't appeal to him at all. So I walked out of Atlantic with no record deal, with money, but I'd lost the record deal, and I was like, phew, thank God for that. I actually said to my manager, my second manager, Ernest, I said, look, tell the next record company, I only want half the money, okay? Don't give me all that money. I'm not worth it. It's not it won't pan out well. Just give me half of that and just let me be the producer. I don't want a producer. They're going to lead you into the 80s sound in 1987 when I made Mona Lisa's Sister. No, don't do it. I'll do it. And Brinsley helped me out there and was another partner in that. And this guy, John Jacobs, was the engineer who was actually a protege of George Martin. Now, he was obsessed with Dolby SR, which actually it's not exactly rock and roll. It takes some of the great frequencies out of the music. So the 80s was still in there, but I think I'd vanquished it because it was only 4 instruments on Mona Lisa's Sister. I still think of it as a high watermark for me, mainly because I was bloody minded and said, no, I'm not going to sound like the 80s anymore. If I do, it'll be my fault, so.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I don't want to stick too much on the 80s, but I'm just going to say this. When you lived through it, when I lived through the 80s, I really didn't think much about the production aspects and how it would date. Because a lot of that, I think that the 70s bands or the 60s bands that were trying to make it in the 80s, that sounds really dated to me. Now, the bands that came out during, you listen to Duran Duran, I think that sounds fantastic. Thompson Twins, any of the bands or artists that came out then, that seems to fit right in.
Yeah, it worked well for them because they were younger and it was a sound hit, and it's like, wow, this is new to me, and they're fresh to it. So that there it was, really. We had to sort of, us older ones had to established artists had to play along. Yeah, because it was like, well, that's what things sound like now, and that's what producers want to do. They're chasing this, all the producers, you know. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, it is what it is, Graham.
It is
what
what it is.
Can I ask something? I mean,
Go ahead.
what do you think, or why do you think critics gravitate towards squeezing out sparks? And is there a thing going on? You know how we pare back the bands that are allowed to remain part of the set list. Is there a thing happening where, to simplify the Graham story, that album just keeps getting more exalted, and to the expense of other things? I mean, what is it about that record that the critics love so much?
I don't know. It's a good record, and it was finally I'd sort of, I started the horn section was a great idea because it suited my early songs and Soul Shoes and those songs on Howlin Wind and Heat Treatment, which is also going to be 50 this year, October, and it worked great. It was just what I wanted to do, reintroduce kind of soul music and horn sections into pop music in general. And my songs just kind of some of them turned out that way. And, you got half a dozen songs. But Squeezing Out Sparks, the songs were very different. I mean, they were, as I say, being honest to my shame, it was me catching up with new wave and punk 2 years too late, really. It was kind of like that because it was like I had to move the R&B thing to the side. Suddenly it was like you're a band who you'll end up playing the clubs again instead of the theaters.
Yeah.
And then you lose money and it's not good with a horn section and a five-piece band. So it was looking at a bit like, okay, I needed to up my game a little and get more modern about it. And there was all that new wave stuff. The new wave music was generally 4 instruments at most. Sometimes it was less. It was very stripped down. Not my favorite kind of thing at all. But Sparks, it was, we still had the keyboards and we still had, but it was less chaotic, but the songwriting was chaotic. I mean, some of the chords, the flips around with the chords were quite interesting.
Yeah.
Saturday Night is Dead and Don't Nobody Hurt You. That's got a great chords. They were just coming out of me like that. I was just sort of leaving behind that kind of swing soul music period. That had just got less. And that's going to come back to me because that's really in my blood, the swing. And that's back in my modern music
Definitely,
to this day.
Yep.
So, but it was songs. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's better than Passion Is No Ordinary World in the entire history of pop music.
Yeah.
I mean, what's up there with Discovering Japan? I mean, come on. Yeah. So, there's no wonder people talk about it. They should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And how would you relate that to the Up Escalator? Because a lot of people rate that as their favorite album from the catalog.
Yeah, people like that a lot. Frankly, that record to me has no sonic identity. All the others, every record I've made has a sonic identity. That doesn't to me. It just sounds like it was recorded, even though Jimmy Iovine spent about 3 days trying to get a snare drum sound, because that was the 80s, because that's what you did. And it all just sounded like Steve playing drums, and it sounded like me singing in the end. Not putting Jimmy down. He was talented guy, and he was dedicated to making a good record, and so people like it. There was some. I know the songs. I mean, Endless Night is an absolute beast. Even better than that, Empty Lives is a monster piece of work. What a bunch of chords and the arrangements, the lyrics. There's good things on there. The sound of it, it doesn't have an identity to me. It's just a record. But other people know. It doesn't matter what I hear. It's when you make a record, it's the public. It's not. I don't count anymore. Yeah. I'm just the guy who wrote it. I'm out of the picture, man.
Yeah. So if it has no real identity or it's kind of neutral sounding, do you think that maybe that's probably why people tend to gravitate towards that, because you can't really date it so much?
Maybe it is.
No,
yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Martin, you think that might be possibly, I don't know. Why?
I think it's got good fidelity, and it's a muscular sounding record, right? And another gray area is almost like the weak tea version of it, right? The slightly more polite version of it. Like it's like the new wavy record. It's semi new wavy back to Squeezing
Yeah.
Out Sparks, and then it gets a little more polite as we move on, right?
Good, yeah. I just don't feel any atmosphere of it that says
Yeah.
what the record is. Like Squeezing Out Sparks
Mhm.
has a real atmosphere, and
Yeah.
Howling Wind, Heat Treatment. That's all it is. But does that really matter in the end? I don't know. I mean, people hear it and enjoy it. That's good enough for me. And you know what? It's so better than Squeezing Out Sparks in Europe and England, which is just unfathomable to me, but it did. Maybe it was just that year later that maybe Squeezing Out Sparks should have come out in 1980, and another great. I mean, up escalated before that.
I don't know.
There's a lot of records that I've made. So
Yeah, you've been busy, Graham. Let's say that.
yeah, I've been busy. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
been idle.
Are there any plans for the anniversary of Heat Treatment?
No, well, I'll actually be doing solo touring in the UK, and America's upcoming, some gigs there, but I'm not going to do a whole. I'm gonna not like some guys that play the whole of the album, or that doesn't appeal to me. But it's stories, anecdotes in between the songs, and it's a storytelling and musical night when the solo thing comes into play. And it's the best way to sort of mess around with the concept of being very old. I suppose that's about it. How did this happen?
Nick Lowe is good on this subject, right? Nick Lowe is kind of doing a really good job of this
he's good,
senior citizen, literary kind of thing, right?
Yeah, well, otherwise, what are you going to do? Sing about teenage things? I don't know, or try or leap up and down on the stage. That'd be a very bad idea.
Yeah.
Ahmet Ertegun would have wanted you to leap up and down and stuff.
I don't know, maybe.
I want to talk a little bit about the Howlin Wind book. So Jay Nachman, I guess he was a longtime fan, from what I understand. How did that whole book thing come about? And evidently, well, obviously you had direct input from the Rumour as well. So how did that come about? And tell us a little bit more about that
Yes.
book.
All the Rumour did interviews, and we've lost two of them now, unfortunately. But Bob, the keyboard player, and Andrew, the bass player, but they were still there, and they did it contributed their part to the book. Jay, I've met him quite a few times in America, and he just got a hold of me and said, I'd like to write a book about Howling Wind. And I thought, well, no one else has. Okay, that's not bad, because it's going to be 50 years old. I thought, well, okay, this is a great idea. Why not? And he wanted to get the stories from us, the people who were there making it. Otherwise, I mean, there's some of these books that you see about an artist or about a record. There's some publisher that does that, and there's no artist involved in them. I think there's one at Astral Weeks I read, and of course Van's not going to talk to anyone. So
I don't think he likes people. I don't know.
Not much, no. So what's the point? So with this, I thought, well, I've got to be all in on it, just to try and make sure there's some accuracy involved. I was there. Not that we remember everything. There's huge holes in the memory, but there's other things that make altogether that a lot of us and musicians that I met in London just before I met the Rumour guys that I played with, I couldn't believe them. I'm looking at their name thinking, oh, these people played with me just before Dave Robinson took over, and then put me with the Rumour and took me away from these other London musicians that I just met. And I thought, well, I didn't say sorry or anything. I just moved on. I didn't, you can't discuss these things. You have to go for the throat, and people get left behind. Even when I split up with the Rumour, I sat them down with a room, and I think there was probably a lawyer or an accountant at least. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore with you guys. And it was cruel, really, but I didn't think it didn't feel like that to me. Because when we did the documentary, Steve and Martin were saying, yeah, that was a bit hard. It was a bit, it was a bit harsh. But, you gotta just move forward. I'm a singer-songwriter, I'm a creative artist, and I write the material. I generate this stuff. So I really didn't think of leaving people in the dust. And it was, but you tend to do that without feeling cruel about it, without meaning to be. You just have to move on. And so all these musicians who I worked with, I'd forgotten about. They were doing parts for this book as well, for Graham Parker's Howlin Wind. They did their bit and said really good stuff. And it was like, oh my God, I remember, yeah, I played with that guy, and then just disappeared with the rumor and a record deal and all that after being helped quite a bit. But you know, that's the way it goes. I thought it was worth getting involved with. So, and now I've done about 5,000 podcasts. And
Well, how long did the process take?
oh, we did. It must have been a year of Zoom
year?
interviews with Jay. I think he would know better than me. He would bet. No, it went on and on and on, but and he would send a draft, which is an amazing thing. And I said, no, you got this bit wrong. You know, you could correct it. That's not, you know, because he's not a musician. He didn't know some of the musical terms we were using and some of those things. And not that we're very technical, you know, but us a lot. But we could describe things a bit better. So it just seemed like a no-brainer to go 100% in on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, for anybody watching this and they want to get the book is out there, Graham Parker's Howling Wind. And just to give a brief synopsis, it does cover everything: your early days, factory jobs, petrol station work, trip to Morocco, which we may want to talk about, and getting signed and the recording of Howlin Wind. So you can get it Amazon, every place they sell books.
Well, it's on Amazon. I know that much. I don't know about shops.
It's probably Barnes and
it should
Noble.
be. He's working on the digital, because I said, you know, musicians, travelers, we like the Kindle. You know, we're not carrying around great tomes with us. There's too much luggage going on. So Kindle is so hopefully we'll be seeing it out on a digital platform soon, like Kindle or whatever. Yeah. Well, it's you know, it was. I don't know. What was the question again?
I have no idea, Graham. I was already on a tangent.
Mentally,
a synopsis of the book. I mean, what it does cover.
Synopsis of the book. Yeah. Well, it's the lives of, you know, the Rumour guys, where they were born and where they came from, their interesting musical travels and experiences. That's in there. My beginnings are in there. The village where I grew up. So anyone who thinks I was, you know, I was born in London, but grew up in an idyllic country setting. I'm a big nature freak to this day. I wish I'd been someone like David Attenborough instead of a musician, but there you go. Didn't happen. You need to be educated to be like Dave Attenborough, not working class. Yeah, I came from the working class, and all that stuff is in there. That's it, really, leading up to that book.
I'm just curious, but is there a story from the book that you can share with the class that just seems to be, I don't know, a moment?
No, yeah, you know, I think what is it like when you've been working menial jobs all your life and not feeling too bad about it? That was okay by me, and working literally in a petrol station, because I'd got, you know, I was back at my parents and writing, didn't want to go traveling anymore. I'd done that, living on the Guernsey Islands, the Channel Islands, coming back, working factory jobs, making money, off to the ferry to France, get yourself down to Morocco like the Beats did, you know, the Marrakesh Express bit and all that. And now I was back in the suburbs. And I think you know, capturing that kind of element was kind of good, because, you know, I'm an outdoors freak, and I love that stuff. And that's what I watch mostly on TV, nature shows. I don't listen to music, I watch nature shows, and a lot of things like Peaky Blinders and stuff like that, and dystopian stuff and whatever. But anyway, just trying to get that across about people rather than, they think you're sitting in a pub going, let's go down the pub and make some pub rock, blah, blah, blah. Just dispelling that somewhat to some people. It doesn't, as I say, it doesn't matter. They'll think what they think. They'll just re-inject the mythology into it. But and I thought that was a good touch about the book. It's not just about an album being made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you remember about just going back to that? Because it's fascinating. You come to this soul thing from a really honest, almost scholarly place. This northern soul ska skinhead kind of place. How long did that period last for you? And what were you into the fashion, etc.?
Totally into all the fashions, yeah. They looking like the Beatles, looking like the Moddy Boys. I had a Lambretta SX 150 scooter.
Wow.
We had a Parker, a German, what was it, Dutch Army Parker or something. Oh no, that was the second one I bought. Those kind of things. I was totally in on that, just the fashion stuff, because that's how you meet the girls. If you're a Moddy boy, you go to a dance club and all the girls are cute. I mean, it's that was good. And if you were a rocker, all the girls look like Cher, which isn't my kind of taste. But there you go. The greasers, the motorbikers. So it's these fashion things, because they were intense about the music. It was intense music loving and style loving stuff. It was all part of it. It was all very important, I thought.
What did you think of the hairstyle on the skinhead girls?
Oh no, they look cute, sort of Mary Quant or something like that. Or actually, it was after Mary Quant period, but they were quite well dressed and pretty cute looking.
Fringe and the little things coming down the side and all that.
I don't know what it was like. Short. It was like false sideboards, as we call them, or that stuff. I had those as well before I could actually grow them. Yeah. That was like when I was just before I could actually grow stuff on my face. Which is dying. You can't wait. You can't wait, can you? You can't wait. And now you find yourself that it won't grow on your head, but it grows out your nose. Great, things an inch long grow out of your ears. And you didn't see them, and there you are on stage, and there are lights, and there's a hair. It's an inch long, and why is it growing out of your ear?
Yeah, well,
why? Look, hello, I need some help up here. What? So it was good to have hair, but Martin, I see he has a head of hair there.
Martin's lucky.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
Yeah,
and aggrieved.
It's receding. It's receding.
That's a good head of hair, man.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, because I was a big Beatles fan. Well, I still am. Yeah. And before I asked my mom, I want like I didn't even know what they were called, but sideburns like John Lennon would have, like 1965, 66.
Okay.
And she said, well, Grant, you're going to have to wait, but we could probably maybe kind of cut your hair so it kind of looks like that.
That's it, yeah.
Same kind of thing, because you really want to emulate. You want to have that same kind of look. Because, man, think about how the Beatles look fantastic. The Mods look fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned those coats. What were those coats called that the Mods wore? Those long coats?
There was, I don't know. There was coats, epaulets came in fashion at one point. There was that. I don't know where I found it. It was secondhand, of course. A maroon leather jacket. It was it was a coat. It was like a long coat. Maroon. It was slick. But also, by the time I joined the Moddy Boy thing, the sort of suede head, skinhead version of mods was a bit more regimented, like an army. Really, it was very skinheady, and. The wearing a suit. I had 3 suits made when I was 16 at a thing called Burton's Tailoring, a company called Burton's, and this was on the army camp town of Aldershot. I would go there, pick out a style, pick out a suit, and have them made, and you pay them a couple of shillings a week that you'd got from your parents, or maybe my first job. Okay, I can afford, and that was really cool to be a skinhead with that sort of the the short hair, brutally short hair, and wear a suit with a tie and go dancing with a black light, ultraviolet light, the black light and the fluff is showing up on you, and white cuffs with cufflinks. There was the smart look. There was the jeans look, parallel jeans as we call them, straight leg jeans. And, creeping around the corner at this time was something called a flower power look. There was that. People starting to wear flowers in their hair, which us models thought was absolutely atrocious, ridiculous.
So you did the boots and the braces thing, Graham? Like you did the boots?
Yeah, I had a bit of that. The braces. Yeah, the red braces.
He's in.
The jeans up. Yeah, it's a bit skinhead. Wasn't my favorite look, but now and again I sported something that was on those lines. And maybe some steel toe caps came into it because you can kick people in the head better if you got steel toe caps. You never know; they might come in handy at any time. You never know. But,
ladies and gentlemen, Graham Parker, fashion icon. That's all I'm gonna. That's what I've learned.
Yeah. There was a lot of violent side of it as well, but that wasn't for me. It was about the girls and the music for everyone, mostly the music. Because last thing got to avoid the trap of getting married young. A lot of my friends met the girl, and that was it. And I knew I had something to do. I wasn't sure what it was. That was the weird thing, but I thought it had something to do with music, and so. A certain amount of years later, it was like, oh, thank goodness I'm free to do this. That was a good.
How close did you get to the punk fashion in late 75, 76? Did you? And what was the invention of punk? What did you see?
No, it wasn't there. I didn't. No? It wasn't there. It was 77. Let's that's. I'd made 2 albums by then. Then it was, by the end of 76 though. Instead of we'd play places when we started, me and the Rumour, it was still this, you sat down on the floor cross-legged and we'd play clubs like I remember Barbarella's up north and a place called the Exit. What was it called? Not the Exit, in Nashville. The Outlook. A club called the Outlook. None of this is even recorded on a website that records a lot of my stuff. Struck by lightning. A lot of these clubs, they didn't, and people sat down because by the end of 76, we'd go back and they'd be probably pogoing.
Wow.
So 76, the punk ethos was starting to kick in. By the time I was almost making the album Stick to Me, my 3rd album, it started to kick in. And by the time 77 came along, by the time Stick to Me came out, that's when the punk hit. So that's 3 albums into my career before you start playing to an audience and they're spitting at you. I mean, as people were spitting at me, it's like, I'm not a part of this crap. This is music, you bastards. But there you go. It's like, okay, well, I'm getting some of their audience. I'm stealing some of their audience here. Fine by me. Every record none of them were big sellers, but they all sold more than the last. So punk helped me and new wave helped me because suddenly I'm supposed to be something to do with this crap. But I wasn't, but it was only due to the harshness of my singing. It's just that I was a terrible singer. So they said, Graham Parker. I was even called the grandfather of punk once.
Wow.
And it was like, no, that's this Lou Reed or somebody. It's not me. You're kidding me. I'll tell you, it really was. What was his name? The head of the band. No, the one I heard when I was in my freak days, in that smoking pads and the acid hads, David Peel and the Lower East Side. Listen to that album, man. That's punk before punk.
I haven't heard that record.
Acoustic.
I'm aware of it, but I haven't heard. I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, David Peel on the East Side, Up Against the Wall, Effers, Up Against, and Marrow. He had a slight lisp, a New York kind of Lower East Side lisp. Marijuana. I like marijuana. You like marijuana. We like marijuana too.
What year was that?
And it was acoustic, man. Well, I was listening to it in about 68, I think.
About 68.
Check it out, man. When I first went to Guernsey. and it was I became the freak crowd, and this was the antithesis of that. But at the same time, we laughed our heads off at it. It was so funny. There were lyrics like, "There's a cup coming down. It's not a cup. It's a Dairy Queen." There was just mad stuff, and somehow these were the only group of people in the island of Guernsey and the Channel Islands who I ever met who had that record. It's brilliant, man. Check it out, man. It's so good.
I have a quick. I'm going to go back to Howlin Wind real quick
Yeah.
and the formation of the Rumor. I'm always fascinated how these bands come together, the chemistry. I know you mentioned earlier that the Rumor really came together very quickly. How did How did that come together? And
they were practicing. They were from three bands that had kind of split up. There was the Brinsley Schwartz band, Ducks Deluxe band, and Bon Ton Roulette. And bands I'd never heard of. I'll stress that once again. Nobody else had either, but yes, some people had.
Brinsley Schwartz, people knew that, right?
Not anyone I knew. No, they weren't known. They were not known. There was a coterie of, obviously they had fans, and some of them were really into them. Yeah. But nobody knew about it that I ever knew. So, and it wasn't, I saw the names in the back papers of the music press, playing the marquee and playing clubs, London clubs. And I've said this before, I thought Brinsley Schwartz must be a German heavy metal band, because that's all I knew.
Sounds like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the next thing I know, Dave Robinson, this manager guy, had managed some of these people and was intimately involved with all of them. Mm-hmm. And they were playing on their own together. They'd got together just to play as a bunch of guys after all this pub rock thing had disappeared. They'd all split up. They called it a day. They were working against the wind all the time. Because I now know, of course, the years these people operated in. Most of it was prog rock, and they were never quite set to seem the British. They're never quite sure what they were. They did a bit of psychedelia because that was fashionable. It came along, and they played rootsy music that wasn't going to make it anywhere in Britain or America. It just wasn't going to go anywhere. So they were playing together, and Dave Robinson put them around me. He said, "I've got the band for you." And that's where I just jettisoned all these great people I just met in London who were really cool and good players. And suddenly I'm doing what the manager says. And I was happy to do it. He'd got me on a radio show with one song, and I got a record deal. So, and I must stress here that on any of the contracts I've signed, there's never any band name. Phonogram didn't sign me because I had the Rumour. People think that. It had nothing to do with that. The Rumour didn't exist apart from as some guys playing together. They signed me as Graham Parker. They weren't saying what kind of band, who's your band going to be. It wasn't nothing to do with that. So these guys are around me, and I'm like, holy moly, now I'm playing with some really good people. It's like, I knew this is so good. Dave Robinson knows what he's talking about. I don't know these people. I don't know their music, but they know how to play all kinds of stuff. You could tell instantly. There's Bob the keyboard player, and he's playing this. It's like, man, these could be backing Van Morrison or Dylan or anyone. That's what I thought, and so I get these people great,
And
you have such good players.
I was just going to ask about the idea of the Rumour. Like, what's the aesthetic or philosophy behind, and who came up with the Rumour part?
No, well, actually, we put names in a hat or something. We sat around, just me and the band, and said we better choose a name for the band. Okay, Graham Parker's Graham Parker. What's the backing band going to be called? And Brinsley chose the word "the Rumour." I regret it to this day. We were very democratic. I chose the questions. For one thing, Don't Ask Me Questions was a bit of a mammoth song on the album. It would have fitted me in more with what was to come a year later, New Wave. It's more exciting and spiky than the Rumour. I find the Rumour a very bland name. I find Graham Parker a bland name, but at least Parker's got a bit of jump to it. And there was, some famous Parkers in the world. I mean, it was something like, I thought it should have been Graham Parker and the Question, still to this day.
Interesting.
It does sound much more new wave you know.
Yeah,
But I
yeah, it
think
would've-
Graham Parker and the Rumor flows off the tongue better. But
yeah, well, it does, but it's not as questions. What are they questioning? That would have been
a
really
little
cool.
mysterious there.
That would have been really good in 1976. Graham Parker and the Questions and the album Howlin Wind. I think that would have done. There's more. I mean, an image is everything. It's more important than the music. It's good if you can back it up with music. And I thought Graham Parker and the Rumour, it's a bit pale to me. But anyway, it is what it is. The music is what counts. And I always said from the word go, it's the music that counts. All the rest is rubbish. All the
Now,
rest is just
this is what I
forget
want to
about it.
know, based on your experience and who you played with before, when you got the Rumor together and you're sitting around and you're going, holy shit, these guys are fantastic. I am playing with people. You probably were in your brain, you were going, wow, that probably made you even play better. Because
Well,
you're around
yes.
all these great people
Yeah.
that are really top notch. You rise up to the occasion as well. I'm not saying you couldn't do that, but it
Well,
does. It all
yeah.
works together.
It was quite a little bit intimidating because I had to up my game, and my game was pretty
Yeah.
good already. All of these guys thought this guy can play, this guy can sing. Every one of them thought that, they knew that. But I thought, hearing them talking about arrangements of songs, I was like, oh, I'm a bit lost at sea here, guys. Hold on. But I managed it all, and it was going to up my game. It really
It all
was.
comes across on the record too. You can tell. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's working.
It works
know?
well, man. And I was an unschooled, unknown, I hadn't been in all these bands. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, play and play and play and play. And I hadn't. So I guess it was, going back to when I was very young and thinking I've got something and I don't know what it is. But, even writing my first song at age 12, copying the Beatles and writing something, it was like, it was good. I thought that. But I got sidetracked by life. And life then was so much better than it is now, because I was young. That's all. But I don't know. I think I talk to my kids who are very grown up now about what it was like in the 60s. You didn't need any money. You could go and stay anywhere for pennies. You could travel all over the world
Yeah.
without fear of being blown up or something. And you could. It was just free, much more free. It was amazing, really. The old attitudes were all over the place among but the kids didn't give a damn about them. We reinvented everything as we went along, and you didn't need money. That was a great thing. You just do some menial job for a bit, and then off you go, get on a ferry and go to an exotic country and live there and spend nothing, crash on floors and all this kind of thing. Hitchhike with, I mean, there were definitely a few people who fell afoul of that, but for the most part, when I got a car and was driving in England, girls would hitchhike, young girls, and I'd just stop and pick them up. And you say, "You going to this club?" "No, they're going somewhere else." "Okay, I'll come in for a drink with you," whatever. And it just, it was a different world, and my daughter was like so pissed off about it when I described what it was like in those days. Not happy. They're not happy about it.
We're going to try to wrap this up in an hour, but Martin, do you have anything else? Anything you want to ask?
Okay, well,
Graham,
I'll
while he's
ask
here,
something
and then
else.
we can
What
wrap
were
this
the-
dog up.
Yeah, what were the pros and cons of a Dave Robinson?
Dave, well, he had this experience and a wealth of experience. And the real pro was that he heard me and lights went off in his head. He thought, "Where's this guy from? Bloody hell, he's good." He knew what he was listening to. He had the experience to know that. And, the wide variety of music that some of the bands that he interacted with, that I learned about, the British Schwartz band, a wide variety of music. So he knew a lot of stuff, and he was tour managing Jimi Hendrix. He'd taken photos of the Beatles in the cavern. Van Morrison slept on his couch. He couldn't wait to get rid of him. Told him he should be with Burt Burns, not Dave Robinson, who got rid of him. And he knew Phil Lynott from the Irish guy. He had, I think he had a club going in Ireland years ago, and these guys were kids then. Van and Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy, they were kids, and Van had, and David interacted with all these people, so he knew a good song when he heard it, and I think that was the bonus with him.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to say, I think what you should try to do. I know you don't like it, but write a novelty song, Graham, because that will help you get off the ground, and then you can do what you want. Because there was a lot of novelty songs in England, but Dave was never going to do anything like that. It was just he knew what a good tune was and where I was coming from with the music. He knew what I wanted, because I said I want a band. You don't meet people out in the suburbs who are any good. Not in those days, anyway.
Yeah, nice.
So,
well, there you go, Graham. Wrap her up.
All right. So real quick,
man.
Graham, before we wrap it up, what is coming up for you in 2026? What is happening in your world?
Basically, I'm, touring these days kind of sucks all the oxygen out of the air for me. I can't walk and chew gum like I used to. I'm always writing bits and pieces. I'm working on stuff. I might even play a brand new song in this set list because it fits with the theme. It fits with the theme. I might do that. I'll try it out. I want to. I think it's going to be good. And it's basically, I've got a tour of the US starting April 24th at the Bolton Center in Bayshore, Long Island there. Look at grahamparker.net. Go there, look it up, come and see me. And I should say to people, I don't know much longer this is going to go on. Okay. I think you got to know that about people. I got some pretty busted up hand stuff going on here. I've had to relearn how to play a little bit. There's no telling. So, yeah, come and see me, because I know that people like me got a bit more popular about 10 years ago because people want to see you before you drop dead. In fact, they hope that you're going to drop dead on stage while they're seeing it, because they can say, no, I saw him. I was at his gig.
I was there. I saw him fall over.
What was it? What was wrong with him? Was it his heart? Oh, no, it was his spleen. Yeah, he coughed his spleen up on stage. And then you were there? Yeah, I was there. Graham Parker. Wow. In fact, some of the blood dripped out from his throat. Yeah, so I touched it.
It was kind of punk. It was kind of punk.
It's seriously punk. Yeah. That's why people come to my shows.
Yeah, nice.
I love you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you for that, because you get to hear music. And then, strangely, I don't die at the end of it.
Yeah.
Disappoint everyone. But, it's quite possible.
Yeah.
When you lose two band members and you've lost, I've had lost friends, two friends of mine, good friends, 59 years old. They passed away. Anyway, stop being gloomy.
No. We're not gloomy here in the warehouse.
I'm strong like bull.
Yeah.
I am strong like bull.
Nice.
All right, cool. Ladies and gentlemen.
And I've got a tour in England coming up in September, a solo tour as well. So I'm busy, man.
Good.
Yes, I've got an itch on my head, excuse me. I'm busy. And I'm real busy, and it's been great talking to you.
Yeah.
You people
Thank
are great.
you, man.
All right,
it's
been a lot of fun.
Graham
Thank
Parker's Howlin, the book, Graham Parker's Howlin Wind, is out now. It's on Amazon. Get it at your favorite book place. Ladies and gentlemen, Graham Parker, thank you, sir, for taking time to talk to us. You are fantastic, and good luck on the tour, and maybe I'll catch you. I don't know.
Yeah,
you coming to Ohio?
Yeah. No, I don't think I am. There's no.
Damn it, Graham.
No, there isn't. It was last tour, I think. I can't remember. There's some Midwest stuff: Milwaukee, Evanston, Chicago, basically, and Edwardsville, which is near St. Louis, but it's in Illinois. So
that's pretty close, though. That's not too far away.
Look it up. Just go to grahamparker.net, tour page, kaboom. There you go.
All right, everybody,
Nice.
Give Graham some love. Check out the catalog. Check out the book.
Very
There's
cool.
more to come in the warehouse, kids. We will see it. Thank you, Graham. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for being so great and good to me, and rock on. See you later, guys.
All right.
We'll see ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.